I had never thought that buying a small ranch out in the countryside would end up putting me in a fight for my life. But that's exactly where I found myself one quiet evening in late spring, sitting on my porch, enjoying the cool air, when the first flicker of trouble showed up an unfamiliar light flashing over my barn at 3:14 a.m. It wasn't the usual random night creatures running through my yard. No, this light stayed on, a full-blown floodlight shining like it was trying to tell me something. I wasn't about to panic. No, that's not how I was trained. It wasn't a raccoon or some careless neighbor walking their dog. No, I knew better. Years of experience taught me to stay still, observe, think before doing anything. I watched through the corner of my leave-wying room window, the glow of my monitor illuminating my face. A figure appeared, two of them, moving slow, deliberately. They knew how to avoid detection, but they weren't quite as invisible as they thought. One had a limp, favoring his right leg. The other carried a red-lensed flashlight, sweeping it across the area with that subtle, tactical precision that I instantly recognized. Recon work. Military style. It was like seeing an old version of myself moving across the property. They never made it past the gate. Didn't break in. But one of them stopped near the well cap, tapped it twice, like it was some sort of code, then walked off without a word. Strange, right? But it wasn't until the morning when I found a small carved bone charm nailed to my barn door, a skull with barbed wire etched through the jaw. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't some stupid prank. It was a message. I traced their boot tracks, deeper than average, leading toward the scrub brush behind the hill. And then, as if on cue, Karen Whitaker shows up a few hours later, our HOA president. You know the type. Walks around with an aura of authority, pretending like she's above everyone. She didn't knock. She didn't call. She just waltzed halfway up my driveway with her designer dog, probably some kind of expensive poodle, and a smile that was more crocodile than human. Beautiful day, she says, like she wasn't standing a mile from her property. She makes small talk, then gets right to the point. Some of us on the board have noticed some equipment violations. I looked over at the hay bales, been in the same spot for 8 years. Not exactly a crime scene. She drones on about community aesthetics, and I couldn't help myself. I point to a goat casually taking a dump on a rock right next to her and said, "This is the aesthetic you're worried about?" Her smile didn't falter, but she took a step back. I could see the gears turning in her head. "I would hate for this to get confrontational," she says, though it's clear she's already ready for a fight. "We just want to make sure everyone follows the rules." She tried to play the good cop, but I could see right through her. Everything with her was personal. Everything was a power play. Hours later, in the mailbox, a notice. A violation. This time it wasn't just a warning. It was official, signed by her, Karen Whitaker, president of the HOA, acting director of security enforcement. I didn't remember voting her into any of those positions. Funny how that works, right? I didn't waste time. That night, I pulled out the box. Not just any box, but saw the saw box. It had been tucked behind a false panel in my workshop, buried under old tool bins and stuff I hadn't touched in years. But that box, I knew what was inside. Encrypted sat phone, flash drive, a folder labeled Moss Rock Echo. Sounds ominous, doesn't it? It wasn't something I ever thought I'd need again, but the way things were going, I wasn't about to sit around unprepared. And then, sure enough, the light flickered again. Barn door. Same pattern as before, but this time it went out. Dead. Clean power cut. Someone was on the move. 2 minutes later, backup power came on, and I saw him, same limp, same red lens flashlight. This time, he wasn't scanning for anything. He was just standing there, staring at my camera lens like he wanted me to see him. Then, he turned and disappeared into the trees. I'd seen enough. I started prepping, checking wires, resetting cameras, reactivating alarms, things I hadn't thought about in years. I wasn't going to sit around while someone thought they could intimidate me. But here's the thing, Karen didn't know IVE faced worse than biker gangs. I faced enemies with firepower, and they didn't send poodles first. The bikers rolled in the next day. 6 of them, all in matte black gear, their bikes sleek and silent, engines purring like they were built to hunt, not chase. They didn't slow down. They didn't wave. They didn't look back. It was a precision cruise, like they were scanning my land, taking inventory. And they came back that night, same formation, but one peeled off just enough to nudge the edge of my gravel driveway with his front tire. He didn't look up, didn't acknowledge anything. He just left a footprint, like it was a message. The next day, I found my mailbox bent, not crushed, Not destroyed, just bent at a 30-degree angle. A subtle touch. The cameras? They'd been tampered with. Lens unscrewed, wires detached surgical. Not destruction communication. They were sending messages, testing my response. And the worst part? The goat. I found it out beyond the east fence, broken neck, leather strap tied tight around its rear leg. Not some random animal attack. This was a message from someone who knew how to work in silence. It was the exact knot I used in Kandahar. No one, not a soul, should have known that. That knot? That technique? It wasn't something you learned from a YouTube video. It was military training, and it was personal. I packed a bag. This wasn't going to be something I solved with a phone call to the sheriff. It wasn't going to be a waiting game. I had a burner phone, a suppressed Glock, thermal optics, and a set of maps. I was going hunting, but instead of finding them, I let them find me. They led me to a bar 2 counties over. No lights, no sign, just a buzzing neon sign half-lit. And that's when I saw him, Jake McBride. Ex-military, a guy I thought was long gone. He didn't see me, but I saw him. He didn't recognize me right away, but I recognized that scar across his knuckles. The same scar I'd patched up after he took a bullet in his shoulder during a failed op. And just like that, it clicked. Jake McBride was involved in this. He was working for them. He was the one who came back for me. When I got home, I found my barn Jared open, not broken into, just ajar. Inside, a crow hung upside down from the rafters, and beneath it, a spent 7.62 millimeters casing. Clean. Deliberate. It wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. They were still watching. The next day, Karen called. The sweet, sugary voice she put on for business calls couldn't hide the fact she was shaking. Mr. Callahan, we noticed you haven't submitted your Q2 property form. I didn't respond. I didn't even dignify it with an answer. But then, her true intention slipped out. She wasn't worried about my property forms. She wasn't worried about anything. This was her threat. It wasn't concern, it was manipulation dressed in silk. But I was done playing games. The battle wasn't just between me and her, it was with a whole system, a whole covert operation, and I wasn't about to lose. I dug deeper into the HOA's records, found encrypted files, and eventually pieced everything together. Karen wasn't the mastermind. She was just a local pawn in a bigger game, a game I was ready to finish. So, I made my move, set my trap, followed their bikes, and uncovered their staging ground. When the final confrontation came, it wasn't just about confronting Karen, it was about exposing the truth. I walked into that HOA meeting, papers in hand, and laid everything out on the table. The people she'd been working with, the files she'd uploaded, the connections she'd made, it was all there. And Karen? She crumbled. In front of everyone. The board? They all saw the truth, and it hit them harder than any violation notice ever could. But just when I thought it was over, I found the final message in my mailbox, a drone photo, timestamped the night before, showing my house under surveillance. The note read, Karen was just the welcome mat. They weren't done, and neither was I. So, I'm still here, waiting for the next move, the next phase of this game. I'm ready, because now, I'm the one pulling the strings. Let them come. Let them try. I'm not the one who's going to be hunted anymore. What would you do if you were in my shoes? How far would you go to protect your land, your life? Comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to share this story, because the game's not over. It's just getting started.